Holly Parks Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the council chambers. Let's please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Kyer.
Here.
Peltonen.
Here.
McCanny.
Here.
Hutchins.
Here.
Hamilton.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
DeSessa.
Here.
Moving on to approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or to the agenda that's proposed tonight? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as present. Anybody want to add anything?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Taylor.
Here.
Peltonen.
Yes.
McCanny.
Yes?
DeSessa.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Hutchins.
Here, yes. Moving on, approval of the minutes. This is the one I always forget, for April 2nd, 2025. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes for April 2nd, 2025, unless there's some changes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes for April 2nd, 2025.
Support.
Roll call, please.
DeSessa.
Yes.
Peltonen.
Yes.
McCanny.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Hutchins.
Yes. Moving on to public comment not related to the agenda. Members of the public can address the commission once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for items not on the agenda. Commission may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. For items on the agenda, comments may be made after commission discussion prior to commission vote. Prior to addressing the commission, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. Is there anybody for public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, moving right along. Tonight's a busy night. Old business, April 12th, 2025 Parks Walkthrough Update. Everybody got information on what we looked at, and I'm sure this was presented to Brian Clausen for his review for whatever is needed.
This was the notes that we took as we walked through them. I just typed them up and sent them to Chris. And this was the wish list that we had, as well as the things that we noticed needed to get addressed. Some of the things got addressed already from the work that was done on the parks from volunteer groups. For instance, the graffiti on the small pavilion, I think, has been handled at Lakeside Park already. And then cleaning up more on the riverfront at Waterworks Park happened during our park cleanup day. That's all that is, just the notes that we were
Yeah.
taking.
There was, for Lakeside Park, I don't see it on here, we do have a broken swing too.
It wasn't on my notes, okay?
Yeah, one of the swings is just completely snapped.
What type of swing, adult swing or?
Yeah, like the regular one. The chains are good. It's the actual seat of the swing that's just cracked in half.
Oh,
But
that's
it's-
what we call a belt swing? Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so noted.
The only thing that I added that we didn't discuss was, we actually didn't walk through Cyclone Park. I think it was just an oversight on all of our part. But we wanted to look at weeding and cutting back the overgrowth around the perimeter of the park at some point this year, specifically for the vintage baseball. The ball goes into there a lot, and there's full of poison ivy. And then our wish list for this park has been to add an asphalt walking path around the park perimeter, security cameras, and then also vintage baseball wanted us to have the last of the soccer posts removed. That was all I thought I was going off of what I recalled from our discussions earlier.
Very good.
Okay.
one comment on the Cyclone Park, add asphalt walking path around the park perimeter. I think we discussed that when we were doing the future site of Cyclone Park. And I think we talked about,
I mean, the memorial?
well, the memorial, yeah. We talked about a walking path around the park, but it probably would have been stones, laying stones instead of asphalt.
Yeah. If we make it asphalt, then could be handicap accessible, which was one of the things we were trying to accomplish in our master plan.
But
It's a
now,
lot more cost.
Brian is laying pavers down also ADA compliant.
It depends, but it also, there's a lot more maintenance with pavers versus
Yeah.
asphalt or crusher dust is what I've seen in other parks
Yeah,
for a pathway. I think as long as you get a compaction, it doesn't have to be a hard surface, it can be crusher dust, as long as they have access to it, meets the slopes and different things like that for ADA compliance, but I can verify that.
Mr. Chairman?
for knowledge about crusher dust, we use that on township ball diamonds.
Yeah.
And it's like concrete up there. If you want to drag it, you have to drag it while it's still loose, because once it sets, it's tough. So crusher dust is a lot cheaper in the long run and more permeable too than asphalt. So that's something we might want to look at.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. On the pavers, I know that they are difficult to maintain because they move a lot. But perhaps maybe you might want to consider stamped pavers where.
Stamped concrete
Stamped concrete,
versus, yes.
there you go. It looks just like a paver.
Yeah.
You can't tell. It's a little easier to replace and maintain, and it gives you the look, beautiful look. They're a little more expensive, but they're easier to maintain, and they look very, very nice.
My sidewalk at home is pressed concrete dyed.
Oh,
And it looks just like paper box in it because the mortar shows the cement. So it is very nice. And cement usually lasts a lot longer than asphalt.
Was there anything else that anybody noticed that was missing from our observations at the walkthrough on any of the parks?
Can I just make one
Yeah.
addition? I personally like the idea of being able to utilize a more stable pathway so that people with handicapped disabilities can utilize it. But I don't know, I haven't read the plan lately, but does it also maybe include where we can make it into some sort of a physical health type of thing where people can, I don't know, how big is it? Is it long enough to do 1 mile? Or
So we haven't
2 miles?
done an overall plan and layout, a project for this park. Those were just some of the ideas that were thrown out there. It would be like way down the pipeline, because right now, in my observation, this commission has been focusing on Waterworks Park and Ganshaw Park.
'Cause it
And
certainly
then the
would be
DDA
nice.
really wants us to focus on Crapo Park in the next coming years. So I feel like anything that we do here is gonna be pretty far down the pipeline as far as large projects go.
Oh,
That's my opinion.
I know, I understand, but it certainly, I think it certainly would be nice, because I see a lot of people, with their children, and they're walking, and their dogs, and things like that, so
Yeah.
if we had something where that they could stay away from the traffic,
Yeah.
that would be so nice, but again, I understand, it's a long term.
And I think to Mr. Suss's point too, I think it would behoove us to have, we already have the master plan, but have we ever done like
Vision boards.
diagram, like vision boards of what we ultimately want this to look like?
We
So
have,
that we're
we
not
have it
just
for all the parks.
piecemealing things.
Yeah, good idea.
And the biggest thing is when we started the tribute one, for
Sorry.
this out here, the committee,
Hey, Joe,
yeah.
can people pull their mics closer?
Yeah.
They're on video, it's not coming out. So,
Is that button up or button down?
Button up.
beyond and up and beyond.
I can't hear you very well either, right here.
Huh?
I think that's it for that.
Anyhow, when we
I
had,
think that's it for that line item.
when we had did the tribute committee, we were looking at this park. This park out here is gonna be an evolution. It might take 10 years to get a vision and stuff done out here.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I mean, if we get that in writing, it doesn't mean that we're, you know, or a picture, it doesn't mean that we're going to do that right now.
Right.
But this is our ultimate goal of what these parks
Yeah.
should look like.
and that's where we had the committee working with everybody else in the community of what people wanted to see out here, the tribute, the walking path, and that was the two biggest things. And the walking path was the biggest around this park out here.
Yeah, walking paths and nature, I don't think the tribute was anywhere in there, but,
Well, that's the only thing we were talking about out here, was the tribute was gonna be out here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it was,
that was a different committee though.
yeah, that's like I
Yeah.
say, that was the tribute committee that we were on.
All right. I think that's it then, unless anybody else had anything else they wanted to add to that.
The pathway around the, by the boat launch that used to have a trail in there with the exercise equipment, not equipment, but maybe we want to look at the original plan. It was pretty awesome. It's not there anymore because it was made out of wood and it rotted. Some of the parts of it are still there, but there were stations all along that path, and I think there were 8 of them, all different, and it was used a lot.
That is on our list. Under Lakeside Park, recreate the exercise trail along the lake path.
Right, right, I saw it, but
Okay.
you might want to look into what was there before, because it was really cool. You know, no point in reinventing
agree.
everything.
Okay, I guess we move on, if there's no more questions, let's move on to April 26, 2025, Spring Cleanup Waterworks Update. Boy, we had, at one time, we had 26 people there. Whew. And Danny Rasberg was there with DPW equipment, and I think the last
That's a
count,
game changer. I appreciate that
That
so
was-
much.
the
Thank you.
the last count on that, I think it was, those are 10-yard dumpsters on the truck, and you took 10 of them out of Waterworks Park.
In one afternoon.
Yep.
One 6-hour period.
Yep, so, thank you, Danny, for volunteering you and your son's time, and everybody else that came to work at Waterworks Park. We're just about done with Waterworks Park. We're getting close, but it looks a heck of a lot better, so we've, like I say, we concentrate on one thing, get it done, and move on to the next. So, great job from everybody that was there, and ASAP was there for, they had 16 people, and the rest were all community volunteers or board members and everybody else, so from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so a lot was done. Great job by everybody,
Thank you.
man. Okay, any more questions about that? Let's move on to play equipment update. Brian?
I met with Joe Hutchins. There is 2 bouncy toys that are newer style. They're fiberglass. They've got the handles. They don't have the foot pegs on it, so they can't get the bounce to them. The springs are a lot tighter. The township park is willing to sell them to the village. I just need a consensus. I think it was $900, Joe, we agreed on? Is that what,
Pardon?
$900?
Yeah, I have to go back with the park for that, 'cause, yeah.
So if that's the case, then we'll get them from there and see if we can get them installed at Lakeside Park was I think, the consensus there. And then Joe, through his thrift shopping, was able to donate 2 bucket swings for us, so we have those for backup. And those are the ones that the kids actually sit in, and they got the 2 leg holes and wrap around there. So we have some backup there if they fail at any of our parks. And then I'll get that other swing ordered. I think the last couple I picked up right at Home Depot, so.
Was there any discussion about trading for in-kind services for the?
No, that's why I have to take back to township parks, and we'll figure out, I think they paid $4.50 a piece for those when they bought them quite a few years ago, and they never were installed. And Brian looked at the other toys, and they're not compliant. We're gonna sell those.
Yeah, they're the old metal ones. They have the foot pegs. They will allow people to get a lot more momentum on them, and that's where the pinch points come in and the people being launched off of them. The other thing is I'll secure, when I was talking with Joe about the swings and different things, I found another book
with some of the other stuff we talked about. I just need to know which, I know we talked about the one swing that's independent, and that price came back pretty high, but I think this company that I found will be a little more reasonable. I think if we get them ordered, I've seen a better turnaround that we can probably have them, or at least paid for before the end of the fiscal year, so.
Exactly, yeah, because that's what I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, we've only got
About 6 weeks.
exactly about 6 weeks that we're looking that we need to use that $7,000 up.
Would the Township Parks Board consider donating those to the
I don't know,
village parks?
we'll have to take it back to the chairperson of
Could we,
Township
could we
Parks.
ask them? That would be great, because we're
Yeah.
running on a pretty low budget this
Yeah,
year.
we'll bring it up at the next meeting, which is a week from today. We'll have to put that on the agenda.
That's a good point. I mean, we have to check what our rules say, what the
Right.
policy says. I'm not quite sure that we're allowed to give away.
But
property.
also too, the price point of 900 being 450 a piece new, it's not, that's not a, would they make it very affordable, even if you can't give it away, but,
I'm certain,
like a
I'm certain that the commission would consider anything that's fair.
that'd be great.
And that's what we paid probably 5 years ago. So I think if you look at the prices of the spring toys that we bought, they probably didn't go down, you know?
Well, yeah,
So I think, the worst case scenario is we break even.
So should we make a motion then to approve you to work with Joe on pricing those out, and then for the other playground equipment?
That would, I mean, as long as it's a consensus, I'll keep working on it, and, like I said, by June, hopefully everything's wrapped up, and then we'll just say, yeah, we agreed on them. I don't know if the board wants to come to a consensus on a price, what they're willing to pay for them. I mean, I'm sure the cheaper the better, but up to $900 if that's the agreement, because that's what they're willing to, that's their max price, but if we can negotiate something different.
well, my rule on Facebook Marketplace is I don't buy anything, even if it's in brand new condition, from somebody who wasn't able to return it for more than half of what the original retail price was. Because it's coming with no warranty, it's old, it hasn't been used, but that's just my hard rule when I'm buying resale.
But we see, we're a public entity, and we can't do that.
Well, you can price it at whatever you want, but I'm just saying, go to the township board and ask them, would they be considering donating it to us? Prior to us having an interest in them, the words out of your mouth was that they were gonna be throwing them away.
No, that's the old ones we can't use. We're gonna actually sell, me and Brian talked about it. The village is gonna have a auction, and we have 6 spring toys that you can't use in public, and they'll be up for sale. And Brian said that whoever buys those, the money will go right to township.
Yeah.
And Brian has to work with Jane, the chairperson of the township parks, not me.
I assure everyone, we'll do our best to, whatever we can do, whatever the policy says, we will make sure that we, because it's going back to our community. We're not looking to make any kind of profit. We want to make sure that everything is fair. Either way, it's going to the same entity.
Right.
And I'm sure the commission will do.
Probably the same kids that would have played on.
Yes, so we will do our best to make sure that it's fair and that it's within the rules that the state allows us to, so yes.
Great.
Any other questions?
No,
For
I think we all
Brian.
have a consensus though, right, that
The village.
it's less than
wants to
$900,
purchase some-
that we
yeah.
will do up to $900 for these playground equipment, and then we will authorize Brian to also look into the swing for us. We're all in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I support that motion.
I've seen a lot of nodding heads, so that's what
Yep.
we'll keep moving forward with that stuff.
Well,
so.
I would support that motion that Amber made, if you made that motion.
It was just a consensus.
It's
There's
a
no motion.
consensus.
So,
Okay.
yeah, as long as the consensus of the board is that's what they want to do, then we'll
All
move
right.
forward with that.
Any other questions about the play equipment update? Hearing none, moving right along to budget discussion.
We
Anybody-
had our budget hearing for parks 2 Saturdays ago. The general fund is in a deficit, so we did budget. There is $25,000 slated for projects for the upcoming year, but depending on what council decides how to cover this deficit, I wouldn't, I mean, I would come up with projects, but there's no guarantee that that money's going to be available for this fiscal year. So, I mean, there's no issues with creating a wish list, and then once all the gaps are filled in, then we can start making the hard, which projects or equipment, whatever we want to do with that money is there, whatever ends up getting budgeted. And then I'll come back with a firm number once the budget's adopted, and then that gives us 3 or 4 months, from July, August, September, October, it's still decent, see what we can do with that, and then next spring will be the rest of it, depending on how everything goes, so.
The new budget year starts in July, correct?
Correct, yeah.
For the budget this year, I know when we went over it, we've only spent like $2,000 out of this year's budget. Is there a way, I know that we wanted to do like the walkway at Waterworks, replace some of those boards. Is there any way that we can like get those boards ordered? So that
Yes,
it comes
I've
out?
talked to my staff, and we've got that on a list to try to complete before July 1st.
Okay.
The bridge at Waterworks, we're gonna be working on the gazebo at Ganshaw, but all that material and time has been being donated by private donors, so that won't come out of the Parks Fund. And that's gonna be hopefully completed in the next couple of weeks. You'll see a fresh coat of paint on that and some repairs done there, so,
Thank you, community.
yeah,
I'd like to see when the community is involved.
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's their parks. Okay, any other questions for that? Let's move on to Urban Community Forest Program Grant Application. Raisa.
Okay, that came out Friday, so we have the new application. It's due September 20th, so we need to get to work on it.
Is the plan still for you and Jane to work on that?
I
Separately?
guess. Do you still want to work on it with me, Jane?
I'd be happy to help. I'd be happy, sure. But
Or
I'm
do
sure
you
we'll
want
need
to
some
do
help
it?
from
If
Say
you want,
again?
if you want to do it on your own.
Do it on my own.
Okay, okay.
No,
It's
no,
the
I don't want to do it on my own. I don't have that kind of time, but I'd be willing to work together. It has to be, I mean, I can help, get started. You and I can work on that. And
Okay.
of course, we've got to work with staff and the village manager to make sure that we have the information that's required,
Right.
when we look at the application. So I'd be more than happy to work with staff.
And this is a
with Risa.
non-matching grant, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
There's another grant this one's only for $125,000 only, right? There's another grant that I don't have the application for that's for way more. Like, I think that one was $450,000, but we might as well apply for both of them. I'm sure we would only get one. The other one should be out within the next couple of days, I would think.
Cool.
No, may I just say something? Obviously, Risa, you and I, we will examine it and, help put it together, but the staff will be the ones who will be giving us the information that we need in order to compile it. But overall, though, it's really going to be the manager and the staff's responsibility to submit it and present it for consideration. We can't just send it in. It needs signatures and approvals and authority by the village. So it's a lot of work, but we can do it.
That and information from Brian too about species and different things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a culmination of this board members and
And staff.
staff. So, yeah, we got to get with the program.
Yes, yes.
Time is fleeting. Yep.
Right. I'll set up some meetings, we'll set up some meetings, and we'll look at the application and we'll see what needs to get done. And we'll meet with the village manager so he can see what he needs. He may need something that he may need to send and no one else can send, so.
Some of this grant is for street trees, so we're gonna need some clues to where you might want street trees.
We just need to know, we have a list of where we've moved trees, and we've
Or how
budgeted.
many more, sorry, I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
How many trees have we removed over the last 15 years? Probably close to 100.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we're gonna need to know how many trees you think we're gonna need.
Right. And then
You
we
might
also,
not be
some of those
replacing
trees
it,
that were
just-
removed, the property owner or homeowner probably doesn't want them replaced.
Right.
So we'll have to generate a letter that says, are you interested in a free tree? Because we don't want to plant a tree and then they're not going to maintain it, or we're back there taking it out because they've killed it. And we've had that happen in a couple places.
Okay,
It's quite a lengthy process.
right.
I'll take my replacement.
So,
Make it a maple.
Just one.
Make it a red maple.
Two.
Okay, is
The
there
last two.
any other questions about the ReTree program? If not, let's move on to general business. Sue Julian.
Hello, everybody. You know me as Sue Julian from Headwaters Trails. And I'm here because a year ago, I showed you a concept of a trail that would end up at what's called the 3A portion of what I used to call the Silverman development, all the 900 houses. Well, now the last section is going in. It's going in very fast, and we have to keep up with it. So I want to show you a couple things. I've brought pictures to pass out, if they could go around this way, and then if I could collect the extras, because I have to go to the next meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. So in the original plan produced by Atwell Hicks, it shows, I'm not going to pass this around, we talked about it before. It shows the trail going through the development, and if you've been out there at all, you know that there's already a detention pond, and then there's an asphalt pathway that stops. Okay, so right where that stops and going up to the railroad track, the developer put in a trail, which surprised me. You know, I hope you're all grateful. I did have some questions, and what I'm passing around here shows you how it was made. He bulldozed, and so I said, you know, have you got ADA accessibility? And he said, yes, I know how to do this. Well, I looked at it again, and I think he's right. They put down geotextile fabric, and then put stone on top of that. Well, the stone, in my mind, I have to see, remember you were talking about how you get almost a cement-type surface. I don't know whether there's going to be needed a surface layer on top of that. I think we have to see. But apparently this is all coming at the behest of the developer, and neither the township nor the city is incurring any
Expense.
debt for that, but cost, yes, that's the better word. Okay, so this is something that Headwaters Trails has promoted for a long time, with the idea that paths would be connecting, and that this particular path would start over at Fish Lake Road, I gotta figure out which way I'm standing, and then come more or less sort of along the river, and then make a 90-degree angle turn, and then come into the development. So, because this went in really fast, on the same day you were having the cleanup on April 26th, we had some people turn out, and you can see them in the picture there. So after the developer put it in, there was kind of like chaotic, the bushes all over the place and so on. So we've piled them all up, and now I will be approaching the developer, because I've asked the township, and they go like, who's in charge here? They're piles, who's going to burn them? If someone else doesn't, then the Headwaters Trails volunteers will do that. Okay. So this path runs exactly along that acreage that the village owns. So it will end up being your access to that property. And you have to think about what might happen with that. And I would urge you to be part of the resolution of that process. And the reason I say that is because in that Atwell Hicks drawing, as you come along Fairfield and then you enter the 3A development. To your left is a big open space, which is supposed to be a pocket park. In my mind, not just for the development, but for the community. I mean, it butts right up to village property. So I would think that that pocket park should offer some parking if people from the village wanted to come a distance, park, and be able to walk, or start at Fish Lake Road and come all the way across, and then have a car to pick them up if they were going somewhere else. I think some higher level thinking needs to go into this, right? But I'm
Parking-
telling you,
sorry,
it's not,
Parking where, like on the township side? Off of-
yes, on the
off
township
of
side.
Hidden River Trail there?
That is correct. That is what I would
That
suggest.
seems sensible, yeah.
The township has not made up its mind yet,
Okay.
and I'm asking for you to get involved.
Sue, and
Yes.
we also discussed parking before when it was offered to township parks, and we told the developer at that time, we'd like at least 6 or 8 parking spots.
That's right.
So everybody could access that,
That's
whether
right.
they were in the development or in the village or
That's right.
anywhere.
Yeah,
We need
because they
parking.
could be even on the far side of Grange Hall Road and be part of that development, but might want to come in a car and start
Yep.
a distance. So the thing that's happening right now, I'm going to pass this out. So the developer put in the path, right? But it ends, it just stops right there. And if you look ahead, you can see in the picture here, you're looking at the railroad tracks. So I personally feel that it's almost like an invitation to go and walk the railroad tracks right now. And I suggested the sign on the top. I suggested this to the clerk and supervisor in the township, and they said, we need to talk to our lawyer. And I said, okay, we need to think about what it should say. But you notice that in my opinion, as part of the overall plan, it says you come to that point, and if you're walking up to that point, you turn to your right, you go to Fish Lake Road, and if you turn to your left, you go into the village property. That seems reasonable to me.
Is that the school behind there?
Yeah.
That is the school,
Okay.
and
They
they've closed
stopped, I
the
think,
gate.
300 feet from the tracks, which is the legal, yeah.
Easement or legal
Yeah.
right away from?
Yep,
But they did just make it an abrupt stop, so it doesn't really, definitely pedestrians would continue on if they wanted to.
yeah, yeah. So, again, I would like liaison or input into figuring out what the sign said. I thought Headwaters Trails people could put up a temporary sign until we figure out what else is happening. But the township said, wait a minute, and they're right, where's the plan for the trail? If you say proposed trail and then you don't have anything to show anybody, maybe that needs to come off the sign. And maybe the sign that should go there right now is just like temporary end of trail, no access, don't walk on the railroad right-of-way, and their lawyer said, put up a sign like this. Well, that means don't walk on the trail. I mean, anyway, I'd like to know what you have to think about that, and let's see if we can come to a general conclusion. But
Can I ask
I
a
feel,
question
I feel
about-
bad about putting in a path that leads right up to the railroad and then not even saying, don't walk on the railroad track.
Yeah, it
property.
should be posted,
In some way, it should be posted.
because the
And-
railroad property and right-of-way is private property, and you're trespassing
right.
otherwise.
Is
That's
this
right.
correct, though, that just on the other side of that track, there's an existing trail?
Well, there used to be a trail, but when the gate was closed at the request of the academy, now that is dysfunctional. It's in there, and it was going to connect all the people. That's also part of the Silverman, Pulte, whoever development,
Okay.
but now it's closed off.
Do you have any plans for, that you would like, or anything in your plan that includes the village parcel?
Yeah, that is up to you. And I was listening to you saying you don't have much budget. I think that this group needs to decide what could happen to that parcel, but in my mind, I think it could very easily be a very low-cost kind of flowers and walkways, if that. Maybe there's some other ideas. I remember when, Risa, when you and I were out there, we just sort of came up with the idea of maybe a sensory pathway.
right.
I happen to have a disabled blind person in my family, and the idea of offering something like that it would be possible. But I think that it could be minimally developed, because you remember that that parcel is supposed to at some time be available for an extension of the wastewater treatment plant. So you really can't build much of anything on there.
Right.
We also discussed sensory trails at the township park, because there's a movement out there for sensory trails,
Yes,
a big movement.
Yes.
And they take blind people out, and they listen to the birds and learn how to navigate through trails. And it's really enjoyable. So we discussed a little bit of that at our one meeting, because we'd like to approach these people and say, hey, come on out, take a look at what we got. And like you say, that parcel of land is low priority, as far as it goes. And we're still developing Cyclone out here. So down the road, I'd say, cover what you got, and let's bring this in to include it before something else happens. It ain't gonna cost nothing, let's do it. Let's preserve it for a conservancy point of view.
so I think you understand that there are multiple partners already in this, which is a good thing. The village and the township, and Headwaters Trails is a nonprofit. Blue Heron Conservancy is a conservancy, also a nonprofit. The Wilson Foundation and Saginaw Bay WIN, $35,000 and $20,000 to go toward engineering. I would like to see that engineering not close off your options
Right.
for what you might do in that property for the village. And that might be almost nothing other than maybe enter here and leave by another. You might do, but if the village could make use of this planning money, I think it would be to your advantage.
One thing that I thought of when we were walking back there was, it's very commonly requested of us to come up with a way for the public to have a dog park. And it seems like an area that would be perfect for that, because it's not right next to backyards. It's not really close to where people are living.
It
And
is
it's
something that I've
beautiful.
also thought of, Ms. McKinney, but I also began to look up dog parks and found out that there's quite a bit of maintenance that's involved in that, and I don't know whether you're ready to go in that direction, although the location does seem very reasonable,
Yeah.
So I would like input, and I don't know if you want me to work through the village manager or not, as to what we can tell the engineering firm to leave open the options, and then you have time to decide what to do with that property, unless you come up with something that you want to do right now. I don't know.
The trail that's drawn on this illustration.
Yep.
From where it ends and then comes down alongside, that is part of the engineering that you're talking about, you guys are gonna.
That is correct. And right where the trail ends, if you turn, you're right in the wetland, so the very first thing has to be a boardwalk.
Right,
And that takes you over to firmer ground, and then just a little further on, there's a stream, and you have a little small boardwalk. And then after that, there's a overflow of wetland, and there's gonna have to be a little bridge there. So some of these things can end up being scout projects, because we're talking about this much distance boardwalk, that kind of thing. But it needs to be part of an overall plan.
yeah,
Yeah.
sounds really nice. But am I understanding you correct that none of the visions that you have for this area include the parcel of the village owns?
That's correct, so that's why I'm
Kind of an open book
approaching
stuff.
you and saying, what kind of things do you want? Or do you have some language that you want the Conservancy, which has collected this money for the engineering, to tell the engineering firm to design as of now?
Us as we're a recommending board to council. we can recommend what we like to
Yes, I
council.
understand, yeah. Mhm.
And I think we need a motion to have you and our administration look into this and find out what we can do about this, the overall picture of everything.
If that works out, that would be fine. I want to tell you that the township part of this, I wrote a Sparks grant, and we were told afterwards that Holly Village and Holly Township was not eligible. They only have 39 communities in Michigan that they were going to award the Sparks grant to. I spent a lot of time on that and tried to price out all the different things that were needed. So some of this work for the township side has already been done. But my list before was almost $600,000, and that's not going to happen unless a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant would be, I think, the only granting agency for that. So it might be that the village portion might get developed before the township portion. But since sometimes things happen lickety-split, and sometimes they're very slow, I think we need to just be organized and prepared.
Well, the main thing is, we got a good thing going now, let's keep continuing. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, and see how it goes and how we can get there. And I
Okay.
think that's where administration's gotta work with you and everybody else, unless somebody'd also like to be on board as a liaison or whoever from this board to work with this and look at the overall picture.
I think, Mr. Price, did you get up there to speak on this?
Well, I was just gonna say that, obviously, like, where my place from this would be, you guys would recommend, what you would like to see. I would look at the feasibility of that and like bring that to council. As far as ideas of what to use for it, I mean, I can assist, but I really, that's what I would like to hear from this commission, so.
I would like to do as low of a maintenance dog park as possible, meaning putting up fencing, keeping, and then, to me, the terrain, the natural terrain that was there seems like it would be ideal for dogs for running around. There's large boulders, it's, not super hilly, you can view long-term where the animal or where your pet would be. But, and it's just that it's come up so frequently from our residents and all of our surveys that they want a dog park. And all of the areas that we've previously tried to put a dog park, we run into very reasonable complaints. I don't want a dog park in my backyard. That's too close. You don't want to have a dog park next to where there's dogs that live. I mean, all those seem very reasonable to me. So this area was like, oh, wow, this kind of checks all those boxes.
Well, the biggest thing we looked at before was dog park out here. And Oakland County got involved, we got them involved, and they said, suitable size for a dog park is 10 acres, because it's gotta be paddocked off, and you gotta rotate those animals just like you do on a farm to take
Right.
care of everything else. So there is maintenance involved. There's one up on the north end of Fenton, up in Fenton Township, and it's a lot of maintenance. But they have to have paddocks so you can rotate the land from tearing up, and also the dogs.
Yeah.
Even if you clean up after the dogs, you're not gonna clean up, so that would be a good spot for
But I
one.
wonder, would it interfere terribly with the visions that you have if we joined forces with Township and united and made a park for dogs that covered some of both of the areas?
I doubt that both of the areas could be used. I think that the village area could be used. The reason I say that is they're separated by the bridge, and there's already some concern of the residents that they weren't expecting anything new in their neighborhood, sort of thing, whatever. So I think that you probably need to take your time in deciding what should happen there. But as long as we can make sure that the free engineering money gives you options later, it doesn't have to be this year's budget, it can be, I heard you talking about how to spread things out.
I would say that in our initial discussions, whenever we've talked about this, we always talk about what is the least cost, because again, we don't know the future of this area, what it's intended to be, but also As far as, you know, if we do a dog park, something like that, any kind of maintenance, continued maintenance that we'd have to do on it, we gotta keep in mind, we can't get like riding mowers over there and things like that. So, you know, it really has to be something that is self-sustained in itself. And that's why initially we talked maybe, you know, if it's walking past and maybe pollinator gardens, things like that, that exist on their own, that, you know, it might be, we can get grant money for early on, kind of take care of itself. But anytime we're doing stuff that is gonna require us to, you know, be out there picking up the dog stuff and then, you know, mowing and such, is gonna change, you know, that whole project.
And that's the biggest thing with our park board here is, let's procure it, and then, but watch what you put in, because if you put it in, you gotta take care of it, whether it's low cost or high cost. And that's what you gotta weigh, because we have limited money and resources for doing that, so
So
I would,
think that there's a consensus that we want to keep this low impact, low
Yeah.
maintenance.
and that's the biggest thing.
For now,
Yeah.
and then you can plan for the future if there,
Yeah.
if other monies or interest arises, I would say. So if you're more or less agreed on that, that's what I'll pass. I'm wearing my Headwaters Trails, no, I'm wearing my, don't even remember, Conservancy hat right now to talk to the engineering firm.
Now, what do
Well,
we
I
have, do
really-
we have to make a motion, or just a consensus, or what would you like?
No, I've got the consensus based on discussion,
You
so.
see where we're all coming from. Let's keep going and see what's there, and how we can do it.
I
I,
think,
for one, am very appreciative that you brought this parcel to our attention.
Ah.
I have lived here my whole life, and I've never been back there, and I've really enjoyed it, even in the stage it's in now.
that's cool, that's cool.
Yeah, thank you for all the work you're doing
Okay.
back there.
Well, I think it could be a real pleasure, a different kind of park. And usually a Parks Board doesn't discover that, oh, suddenly we've got a new park. So
I know, right?
it's unusual.
True.
Well, I think what's wonderful is, again, you know, in our surveys, walking trails were the biggest thing, and I know that this isn't, you know, it's just a sliver of the village, but we can still tell people, hey, there is a walking trail out here. you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
And that adds more recreation into the village, walking trails and stuff. So we need parks and recreation here in town.
Yeah, see, I know like in Seven Lakes, like the walking trails out there are huge.
Yeah.
Like using this for the walking trail, like would keep it a lot more local and closer, it might be nice.
Mr. Taylor, the idea is that this would eventually connect up to Seven
Yeah.
Lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And then from Seven Lakes into Fenton Township and Fenton and the Laugh Trail there.
Yep.
So it could be very cool.
Did you
Yeah.
say you needed these back?
Excuse me, I
Did you
don't,
say that you needed these back?
well, I just need a
once you
few
handed
for the
out?
next meeting.
Each of them, okay.
I saved them for you.
One other point of consideration with that particular location is there's 3 parcels that the village owns. The western parcel is actually in the township. The village owns it in the township. So we have to keep in mind that if we are expending, I don't think we can expend any money on a village park that's in the township, because it's not actually within
Right.
our area,
Yeah,
so.
We
Well,
need,
how's that work for the township having all of their parks in the village?
Because the village is part of the township.
and also at
That's
one
true.
time, where the parks were, wasn't in the village, it was in the township. You gotta remember the times that we annexed land and what the size of how Holly grew, the past history of where was out-of-town Holly over all those years. So, yeah.
Well, certain parts of Sorenson are in the village.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
and part of,
Yeah.
yeah, uh-huh.
and part of Rose
And
Township.
the beach.
Yep, a little piece of rose.
And I think the key difference is the village is part of the township, but it's
Yeah.
not the same, you know, the opposite.
So
So-
why can't we put a dog park in Sorenson Park?
We're not on their board. Only half of us are.
Wait a minute, yeah.
And, you
So,
know, that-
One,
so
two.
am I understanding you correctly that because that property is not located within the village limits, that would be harder for us to get grant funding for it, or for us to get?
I don't know about harder to get grant funding. It would be harder for me to actually expend any general funding for something that is not actually within the village.
I thought that was already out of the question. I saw the budget
Yeah.
session.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm talking about in the future too, future as well.
Also, the other way out of that is a 425.
Right. We did it for the school, we can certainly do it for a park.
Yeah, we did it for a lot of our developments, so that little parcel of land that is not totally worthless, but great for parks, 425 it. Let's work together with the township. We've always done good on parks with the township, and let's just keep it going.
And we'll explore all the different options, because obviously this is a unique situation.
Quit in a minute anyway.
All right,
So,
Thank you.
thank you, I think I have the consensus of the group here.
Yeah.
And I'll be working with you, Mr. Price, right?
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to Village of Holly Ganshaw Park renovation proposal, Danny.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. You've all already seen this. We did make some changes, that's why it's back in front of you. Jane and Sarah and I met to just go over a schedule that we wanted to see done. You guys all have this in front of you?
Yeah, we all have this.
Okay, so it's on page 2. It's the projected timeline that was added. Basically, we just wanted to be able to have this in there so that it would help with grant writing and a better understanding of everybody seeing how it would progress. I would want to point out 2026, repair existing gazebo. I will be heading up the volunteer group on Saturday at 10 a.m. to get that gazebo scraped, and then the following weekend, we are gonna be repainting it. So, we're already getting stuff done. Yeah. And then the other thing was, if I can draw your attention just to the design, pictures on the back. If you look at the first picture, the parking lot expansion that we're talking, we just wanted to notate how many spaces it was. It's only 4 spaces, so the spaces that are being added are in yellow, if you can see. The spaces, the lines themselves are just in yellow. That was the best way I could notate how big we were actually going to ask to make this parking lot expansion. Okay? And as well as adding the lines for parking. Because it wasn't in the original rendering, so we just wanted to make sure that those were in there. As you can tell, there's handicap spots. The gazebo would be fully ADA accessible. The design itself is actually set to be the ramp itself that is gonna wrap around the gazebo. The calculations have been done in terms of how big the gazebo needs to be in order for that ramp to be ADA accessible. So, obviously, along with the schedule will be engineering, and they will be looking at all of that, but it is something that already has been thought out and looked at, so,
Awesome.
okay?
Wow.
Brian, have you heard anything at all from SISMA specifically about doing an evaluation of the water
No,
area?
I have not heard anything from SISMA, but on this note, the council action request has been generated because it had to be in by noon today to be on the packet. So what this board would need to do is vote that they want to move this forward for council approval, because there will eventually be monies involved. And then staff is going to ask council to adopt this plan. And then in the future, once the plan is placed with the county and SISMA and the grant takes place, any projects that take place or any monetary funds will be brought to this board first and then asked for council for approval.
Okay.
But the plan we'll try to adhere to the plan, and then if there's any changes or stuff like that, then, or the funding doesn't become available, we can renew the plan in 5 more years, but it's a 5-year permit that we're looking to get. So that by having the plan, it allows us to apply for the permit, so.
Just a quick question. The way that this is kind of oriented, it's like, are we switching up parking? Like, are we changing how much of the parking lot are we changing on this?
So, like I said, if you look
Like
at
the 4 additional, it's just the way that this is
it's
oriented.
just adding-
The gazebo is usually at the end of
correct,
where
we're
the parking
changing
is.
where the gazebo is gonna go.
Okay, perfect.
it's
And
gonna
then
be
the
a
parking
new,
would go
new
all the way
gazebo.
up to where the gazebo was.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, basically, if you look now, there's a concrete pad where the ramp starts now for the gazebo. That's as far as the parking would go.
Okay.
So it's basically 30 feet, 30, 40 feet is what we're looking at.
Are you moving the existing gazebo, or are you building?
We're gonna be looking at building a brand-new one.
And the existing gazebo is over 40 years old. I know, so its useful life is been exceeded, and we've done maintenance over the years. We've added some skirting around the bottom, we've done some board repairs and stuff but a volunteer group put that in, and I think it was 1980, so about 45 years ago, so.
Project Pride.
I'll make a comment
No,
that
was
we
it- I
have
think
10
it was-
years before that's considered antique.
It's already passed their 25-year card after 25 years. I
We
think,
better
so.
hurry. Before we have to vote
Kiwanis
for
was the
PC.
one that did, was the funds for that,
Right.
and
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they have expressed to us that, you know, they're fully supportive of basically getting rid of it and looking at something new.
Right.
So,
Revitalizing it. And they've also been very involved in working with the DDA and the plannings of the parks. They're still involved, 40-some years later. It's really nice.
Yeah, I think the time of the gazebo is gone. Make a new one.
Well, we can do some little patches, and it's actually, it's holding up okay, but yeah, it's,
Yeah,
we need to
temporary.
start really looking at that for our
Yep.
future.
I think with the new plan and grants is what we're looking at to replace it. So if we can get the funding
Right.
through grants, it makes it a lot easier to replace it sooner than later,
Yep.
so.
In the meantime, it's gonna be spruced up, and
Yeah.
it'll be
We'll make do with
functional
what
for
we got.
pictures.
yeah, we are looking at totally funding this project without asking for the village for any sort of funding or any funding from Parks budget. So we're gonna be looking at grants and private funding, so.
Good.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Amazing.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much.
And did the packets for council already go out at noon, or you said the deadline was noon? Because these were actually submitted like last week, which is when we got them, and we voted last week to just make the additions for the changes and then send it straight to council. Last month, that's how we
Okay,
voted.
well, I
on it.
wasn't at the meeting last month. I just created the council action request, so it will be on the agenda. But needed to make sure that everybody agreed on it tonight, because if someone decided they wanted to make more changes or change something, then that would take it off the agenda.
Well,
because
so at last month's meeting, we specifically stated, let's make add in just the timeline and there was a couple spelling errors. We were gonna make those changes, those are the only changes that were made, and then send it on to council, so that we didn't have to come to tonight and then wait till next month, because our deadline, we gotta.
Right, I understand the
grant
deadline for the
July.
grant, but if someone decided tonight that they weren't happy with the timeline, or they weren't happy with the spelling changes, and decided they wanted it pulled, then we'd have to pull it from the agendas. So all we need tonight is a vote that says, yes, we're good. It's
Can
on.
we still get it into the council
Yeah,
meeting?
it's good.
We-
The only way it would come off is if someone decided tonight they did not want it on the agenda.
And
They
you
wanted to
need-
make more changes. That would be the only way it came off. We've already, yeah.
We
So,
need to vote on that tonight.
yes.
Okay.
If you vote that, as presented tonight, that's what you want to go to council, that's what will be on the council agenda next week.
Okay, does anybody want to make a recommendation or any questions?
Not a question, but I'd like to make a motion that this proposal be submitted to the village council as presented.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please. Oh, any other questions or debates on this? No? Roll call, please.
McKinney,
Yeah.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Peltonen. Yes. Taylor. Yes. Jesessa,
Yes.
Kyer,
Yes.
Hutchins.
Yes.
So it'll be on the council agenda for Tuesday, May 13th? Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, let's move on to farmer's market.
I asked this to get put on the agenda because during budget discussions, the farmer's market was brought up, and my understanding and that a percentage of the fees collected were, I know in the past we've had a check presentation, and last year that didn't happen, so I'm just trying to find out if that's still part of the agreement with the farmer's market, that a percentage of that goes to the parks?
It is.
Okay. Because we've had some changeover in administration with a new clerk treasurer and a new village manager, and they were unaware of this. And when we started talking about the farmer's market, I was like, wait a minute, we didn't have a check presentation last year. Usually happens in the fall when the market's over
Yeah.
with. So I just wanted clarification, because I didn't know if that was a one-time deal or if it's supposed to be every year, so.
It is supposed to be every year, and it
Okay.
does happen every year. It came in late this year because of the family medical situations that was going on with her family. What I don't know is if they're still under our insurance. When the farmer's market started up, that was one of the things that they wanted, was to fall under our umbrella for insurance.
Okay.
Now, Diana Reagan, who currently runs the farmer's market, also has other markets that she runs, so she may carry her own plan. That I don't know. Whereas I know when it was Genevieve Rainey, she did not, and so that was how
Yeah.
it started. But we do still, it's a percentage of the vendor fees is what she turns in. And it was, every year it was being submitted to Village, and it was put in the general fund earmarked for the fireworks, which is really a parks event. So in essence, it's going back to the park, the money goes back to the park.
Yeah, well, like, anything that goes through the general fund has to go, it's a general fund revenue,
Right.
but then it can be earmarked if it has an expense. So if that's what it's for, is fireworks, I'm sure Tim will love to hear that, because he's been
Yeah.
tasked with being the fundraiser for that again. So I just wanted to make sure that anything hadn't changed, and I was giving the new administration the correct information. So I'll just pass that along, and so is there going to be a check presentation from last year, or is she just gonna give it to the village directly?
She
Oh, she
already,
already did?
she
Okay.
already did. It came in when she got all of her paperwork in.
Okay, so
Yeah.
was Lisa made aware of this, what this funding's for? Because she's gotta do the journal entries and stuff like that,
So she told me she wrote a check and that she wrote it in the memo. That
Okay.
it was for
I'll
farmer's
check
market to parks.
I'll check with Lisa, and then in the morning, I'll let Tim know, and then that's an annual thing, so he'll make note of that, so,
Thanks, Brian.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions about farmer's market? When's it starting this year?
It started on,
Last Sunday.
yeah, it runs May through October,
that's
so the
right,
end of
yeah.
October, the beginning of May.
Good.
Started last week, they had a great, I went, it was a pretty good turnout, they had lots of vendors. And then this coming week will be their Mother's Day weekend.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, should be nice weather for it too.
Okay. Any other questions? Let's move on to closing public comment. Does anybody have a comment for the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, my name is Amy, last name is Ray, address is 108 College Street. My comments are regarding Cyclone Park and the earlier mention of the tribute project. I have 4 brief items as a border resident to Cyclone Park related to that. First, just thank you for mentioning the tribute and its tribute committee. I have been a border resident for Cyclone Park as a member of that tribute committee. I haven't heard anything about it recently, so I'm interested in looping back up, so I appreciated that reminder that it's still on the radar. Over the weekend, I noticed a really nice park with a tribute area in Millington. I don't know if anyone heads down 15. It's a really nice little park with benches, and I have pictures of it, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If anyone on the Parks Commission would like to see photos of that, I did take photos of that. Secondly, just a reminder, as you know, there are a couple of upkeep ongoing items regarding Cyclone Park that just need to be, that are free and low to no cost to the village, which just seem to be nailed, they need to be nailed down. As you guys are well aware, you know, with all due respect, you guys are really on it, that just seem to be, they're just routine, but the constant flooding, I understand that the drain itself is under jurisdiction of Oakland County, and Brian is the liaison to that. Maybe they need to put in another one. I don't know exactly what the relationship is there, but I have also pictures of from an aerial point of view, of the massive flooding that is happening annually, and that just seems to, it's low to no, I'm hearing low to no cost, and things that need to be nailed down before further development. An idea that has been floated around among neighbors is maybe an eventual solution might be a pond, a partial pond, because it's happening anyway. Not sure, how low cost that could be, but the fourth item, lastly, is another item that just seems to need to be nailed down or better, like, publicized. The parking that's occurring in Cyclone Park on the grass. For example, just today, if we're all interested about maintenance and maintaining low to no cost, a new maintenance item cropped up today because of a massive lawn job, entrenched, like a 4-inch deep trench, because of the parking that occurred today on the grass due to an event on College Street. It's just the policy, I think, that needs to be addressed before further development goes by. The last time I did speak with the village council in a public meeting, it is not policy to have parked cars on the grass. And the former city manager was actually corrected in public on that item. The parking is okay in the parking lot, but no agreements include parking on the grass, and that is happening. As the weather is now warmer, it happened in 2024 every Friday night and Saturday night pretty much, and the same thing seems to now be underway. It happened today at an event. And because we know it is policy that no cars should be on the grass, we called Chief Narsh, a neighbor did, because that is policy and that is of concern to him. So a little reminder, also, if it is policy, on the other hand, that parking is okay, maybe it could be a moneymaker, in terms of any permitting and attached per car fees, because money is being made on valet parking, because valets are being used. It costs money to hire them. Somebody is making money off of the valet parking, and it is occurring in Cyclone Park on the grass. So in summary, lastly, I do have pictures of that really cool Millington Park area, the flooding that's happening, all of the parking that happened, and the trench that happened, if anyone wants to follow up with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? John?
John Love. It's hard to hear what you're talking about with the acoustics in this.
Your address, please, John.
Pardon?
Your address. Name and
Where do I
address
live?
for the record.
I live at 200 North Saginaw.
Thank you.
I have a dog park in front of my house where the dogs make donations as they traverse it. There's one there currently that I haven't made arrangements for. Anyway, it's hard to hear what you're talking about unless you talk into the microphones, so I don't quite hear all of what you're saying. I'd like to seek some kind of a map that shows the parks that are in the village and the township, because we also are members of the township and have access to all of the other parks. So I'd like to see it integrated in some way with some kind of a map at least to show where they all are. And they also have people that work full-time at the village, at the township, so we can have them even come down here and talk with us at some point about the overlap, because we're all in the same ballgame. So those are a couple of thoughts that I'd like to see integrated into what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public comment? Scott?
You want to talk into this, or you want
I drive these people crazy already.
to? I don't think so.
Hello, Scott Schlag, 6378 Weatherford Court, Holly Township. Sorry. We're at that time again. We have baseball starting up on May 31st, right here at Cyclone Park. That is going to be our Battle Alley Brawl, which is sponsored by Battle Alley Brewery. June 7th, the very next weekend, we have our Holly Cup with our 4 clubs that were here last year. And the response that we got from them last year is they loved it here And they have made this their own little personal tournament every year amongst the four of them.
Nice.
I do have the team from New York coming in August. They travel the whole United States. So, they are actually playing Gettysburg a month before they come to Holly. So,
It's a tough follow.
so they might, you know, and actually the club they're playing against, Mount Clemens, is playing in Gettysburg as well that weekend. So our name is going to get out there to other clubs throughout the Mid-Atlantic states and the Midwest. Then we have our last tournament is always the Carry Nation. The plan is, if Mother Nature cooperates, is to hold the first two tournaments right in front of the flagpole. So hitting towards the village offices. The village office would be dead center field. Last year, a couple gentlemen from Canton almost hit the building from the Little League field, and I didn't want to see that happen again. One of the things I would ask permission for is possibility of creating a small volunteer team to go in and clear some of the brush along the fence, just back a little bit, if that's possible. Along the line where the houses are. Yeah. Yeah. Just, because foul balls will go in there, and I don't want people coming out itchy, so.
That works out good with some of the complaints we've had from the residents along there. They
Yep,
would
and the
like to see that now,
mosquitoes.
too.
So,
There is a lot of poison ivy in there to be careful of.
So you'll be seeing me out there with a weed whip and a hazmat suit, so. Anyway, there will be signage that'll be up the day of the game. There'll be signage going around Saturday with our schedule. I have big poster ones that I will have clubs sign throughout the year, and we'll have donated at the end of the season. And I look forward to, seeing how this year transpires. So again, thank you for allowing me to bring my crazy little baseball.
Now,
to your
Scott,
team.
isn't it time of year now for donations to your baseball?
There is, I didn't want to come hat in hand, especially after listening to everybody.
Well,
I've got the invoice from last year, so I will send that to you. $200. Oh, backup plan for the township, if for some reason beloved Cyclone Park is underwater and we don't feel like doing the backstroke to chase down fly balls, Sorensen Park is the backup plan.
now, you have to get a hold of Mary
I
Blanchard.
have to go over there and talk to them.
Talk to her, because we got Little League scheduled, but this is on the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Saturdays.
I think we're okay, but check with her.
I will. I
And
just
you-
been traveling a lot for
If
work.
this floods, you could do water polo.
Yes. And actually,
Also an old game.
thank you for taking down the Little League field. That got a lot of good feedback from the players last year. The one concern is doing that, there was a lot of grass that was ripped up and some divots and stuff. Was that all filled back in?
Yeah, we went through last fall before September and filled a lot of those in, but we can, usually the mowing contractor lets me know that
Okay.
it's getting a little rough over here, so.
I kind of felt that way, so, but thank you. Can I bug your husband for some bales of hay again this season?
Sure.
Awesome. And that's it. Thank you.
Scott, if you get a chance, next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock,
I'll be in Chicago.
bring us some pizza, but we'll pass the word along for donations at the next Township Parks meeting, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Any other public comment? Let's go to reports. Brian?
We talked about the swings and the bouncy toys, so we've got some direction there. I have talked to the mowing contractor about the work that was currently done at Waterworks Park, and I'm going to meet with him about maintaining
Are you gonna try
that.
this more to Mona?
Well, he walked it and he asked if we wanted it mowed, and I said yes, but he's concerned that there's some stumps left there that's gonna be hard on his equipment, so I said we can walk it, see what areas that we can topsoil and seed that he can get to, and then I may have to send one of my guys over there just periodically to weed whip, but because he has concerns about time and weed whipping is not outside his contract, because we've added to that, but we will try to keep that as cleaned up as possible, so, because there was a lot of work that went into that, so there's no sense in wasting that. There is, the cyclone parking was brought up. The village manager and myself have made contact with the owners of Venue 111. Their crew will be here tomorrow to fix the damage that was done today. And then, the village manager is meeting with them on Monday to discuss long-term plans. And as previously discussed, there is a parking agreement that was approved by council before we moved into this building. So, I explained it to a couple of the commissioners, that if that needs to change, then there needs to be a recommendation probably from this board to go back to council, and then council would have to rescind that parking agreement.
Do you have recollection, was that an annual agreement, or was it just an
It was,
an open-ended
I
agreement?
don't,
It was before I was on council.
yeah, and it
like
was
right
before we were in here
I
and
remember
stuff
when
like.
it happened, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
There was no sunset on that agreement.
No, I think it was an open-ended agreement that
Yeah.
both sides could change it or
Right.
terminate it, but it had to be done through the proper channels, so.
Yeah.
Right.
That's, I said, if this board wants to make a recommendation to council, then staff can create a council action request, it can be discussed. We'd have to find, I know there was an agreement, a written agreement, and I know there was some different discussions at various council meetings about parking on the grass, not parking on the grass. There was some discussion about creating pasture parking out there, similar to what was done on the north end of town at a venue up there. But I don't remember all the particulars of what was accepted and, from council for this parking agreement. Because I think it was about 5 years ago. I think it was during COVID or right after they opened, so, but there is council did grant a parking arrangement, and I know there was talk of adding parking spaces and doing different things, and there was some renderings that were shown, but there was nothing ever concrete about additions, and then we moved forward with moving in here and renovating this, so that changed a little bit, a couple things too, so.
While we're discussing that, can you check with the county on the drain situation here again?
Well, I can, but historically, that area stays wet until about July.
Yeah.
Because the county drain is pretty flat through here. It
Yeah.
goes all the way out to Bevins Lake there. So we've had the county out here, and they would have to special assess everybody to add another drain or do anything like that. I know the township manager, or township supervisor and myself have put a little bit of pressure on the drain commission to get us back on the radar, because we've sort of, the maintenance out in this area has been neglected for several years, and they did admit to that, but, and don't quote me because I know there's rules, but they're only allowed to spend so much money on a maintenance project before it has to be approved, and that's by state law, and I don't know exactly what those numbers are, but I wanna say it's minimal. And when you talk about a construction project, like $25,000, $30,000, it's not a whole lot when you talk about having to clean a drain out and get heavy equipment out here and do maintenance on something like that.
Yeah, this has been a problem for ongoing years, but also, the last couple of years have been wetter. In the last 3 days, Pontiac got 3.1 inches of rain, and we got some of that.
Yeah, we got about an inch of rain overnight, the last
Yeah.
24 hours, so,
They said usually an inch a day for 3 days, so we got still a lot of water in Holly.
yeah.
And that's always been a problem out there, because we used to do Cyclone Park softball. And sometimes it was pretty tough playing a game down there where the old ball diamond was.
George.
Mr.
Chairman, I just want to make a comment about the parking agreement. I strongly would urge the village council to consider updating this contract agreement, because I've received a lot of calls from individuals about parking out there. And everyone that I spoke with, nobody was certain about this contract. Somebody had heard about it, but there was nothing concrete. So again,
It sounds like our manager is going to be meeting with them this week to do that.
I would definitely
You don't have to go
recommend,
to council.
I would definitely recommend that I go to council to have something concrete.
Well, there
especially-
is a, council voted on a parking agreement. That would just have to be reviewed by the current administration and then presented to.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, I would just, again, respectfully, because when I spoke with some individuals here, officials here for the village, they were not aware of this agreement. And I know that many residents were very upset to see parking on grass, especially on park grass. So, but again, I understand that there's a need, and I respect whatever the village council would recommend, but I certainly do ask that you may want to revisit this and update it a little, so everybody knows what they're responsible for doing. Thank you.
And I also received phone calls about it, and I said, the two people you should be contacting instead of everybody else, including me, is the village manager and the chief of police. Because that issue, I knew there was agreement for parking out there.
So if it's a consensus of this board, I'll pass it along to the village manager that,
I got a lot of calls Friday.
that they want to review. And last Friday was prom,
Yeah.
so, and it was at venue 111.
Was
So if
that
they-
Holly's prom that was
Yes,
at anyone? Okay.
yes.
Yep.
So if the consensus of the board is that they want council to review that, I'll pass that on to Tim. And then when Tim meets Monday with the owners, then it'll probably be brought up on Tuesday, because I'm sure if members of this board were approached, there's probably other council members that were approached also, so.
Yeah.
I was told by Carol, the clerk, that according to Tim, I needed a FOIA request to understand if the parking was permitted or paid for. And I don't want to do a FOIA request. I was just, wondering the status.
Yeah.
We'll find out sooner or later. Okay, any other questions for Brian?
I was just want to say, like, last Friday, with like all the concerns, I also got a bunch of calls and came out and I saw tire marks going across the park, like, so obviously, like, they're abusing the parking, obviously, so definitely need to review it and maybe even put in if, further abuse happens, then revoke it.
Okay. Like I said, I'll pass the consensus along to the manager. He's gonna meet with the owner, and then it'll probably be brought up to council. And then council can decide, because I don't believe there's anybody on council remaining that was part of the original agreement, so.
Buster, maybe, because he was on council before, he was on the council before we got elected, so he would
Okay,
probably be the
yeah, so,
only
yeah, he
one.
might be the only, yeah, so,
Okay,
yep.
any other further questions for Brian?
Call him.
Let's move on to Chris. Chris, do you have any reports?
Nope, all good.
Well,
Thanks, Joe.
yep. Raisa,
Nope, nothing.
Gail,
Nope.
Sarah.
The Holidays Committee did meet briefly yesterday. They continue to meet on a monthly basis. We need to start ramping up on the community play day aspect, which is the portion that Parks sponsors. And that involves contacting nonprofits, churches, and schools and inviting them to participate. I could use assistance if anybody is interested in getting involved in that. And once, probably in another month or so, we'll go hot and heavy on Halloween.
Cool. Any questions for her? Moving on to Amber.
Basically, yeah, just to summarize what Brian Odie said, we met as a council for the last couple weekends to talk about our budget. Things were good there for a little while, but now we may see, yeah, a drop in our stuff. But honestly, for the last couple years that we've been on here, we've never come close to even using the budget that we've been allowed.
Good job. Okay. Jane?
Excuse me, I just wanted to thank everyone who participated in the various cleanup of our parks. I have the privilege and honor of working for both the township and the village, and I tell you,
We're better, right?
Oh, listen, that start. That's what we got to do.
all I can say is it's beautiful, and they're both sides, and it was wonderful to go out there and clean up many of the stuff and work with many of the volunteers, and I was just stunned that sometimes people would just come off from driving, and they would volunteer to help clean up and things of that nature, so that was really awesome. And again, I can't thank the staff enough for their work. Danny, thank you so much for helping us out there. That was tremendous what you
Heck,
did.
yeah.
That was excellent. And then, of course,
And this weekend, too.
and then on the other side with the township, when we did the beach and going out to visit all the parks, so it's just tremendous. Our parks are probably one of our most beautiful jewels in our village and township, and I'm hoping that we continue to take care of them and address their concerns and their needs. So lots to do, but thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mentioned last month about wanting to set up events and that for kids and that. I haven't forgot. I still am trying, just robotics, I mentor with robotics. That kicked up again and got busy, so I'm still trying with that, so I haven't forgot, still doing that. Robotics is going good. The high school teams did really good. The middle school team's doing really good. I also want to say, also with the cleanup at Waterworks, when I was out there for the whole time. It was chilly, it was a cool day. Kept everybody moving, but what a great group. I mean, they worked so hard and so, just, they never gave up, they never quit. And it was volunteer work, and they worked like it was, like a career life work. I mean, it was like they were out there to do it and get it done. And we even had kids out there, high school kids, younger kids, and they even impressed me thoroughly. Like, they were out there, not goofing off, working hard, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you. That was a really good show for community support there.
On
Very
that
well.
note, if we have photos, let's make sure that we get an acknowledgement, especially, and if you know the community members that were present, let's make an acknowledgement on the Facebook and the social media pages.
I took a lot of pictures, so I sent them all to you. I don't know the names and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But if you could post those or give them to,
Joe, do you happen to know the names of the people that were present
Well,
from the community?
Danny's two
Besides
boys were
Danny.
there, and then there was a girl that stopped to do community service, and we wrote her name down. She was for Honor Society, and her boyfriend helped too.
Good.
So we had
Well, I
people
can
that
talk to you
dropped in.
later about it, but let's make it a point to make the public
Well, you had the
announcements
kids,
too.
like, they showed up and they worked just
Great.
as hard too, like, they were a great group.
That's nice.
Everybody, just thank you so much. And that's it for me.
Okay, my report. Well, Parks and Parks work together. That's what Sue Julian is helping us do, is combine our efforts with the township and the village. And Parks and Parks can get along, so can everybody else. There's no excuses or no pointing fingers or anything else. And, yeah.
What are you trying to say?
And I'd like to thank Holly Donut Shop for the donation of donuts, and Little Caesars?
That was Amber who
Yeah.
donated the pizza.
Well,
And
pizza, you know.
Jane who,
Trying to just keep that under.
Jane who
People will
donated
think
the
I'm nice,
water.
we
Yeah,
don't wanna.
so thank you very much.
It's very appreciated.
Yeah, everybody liked it, and we did the same
And that was
thing at,
Scott that donated the gloves. By the way, were there any gloves left over? Does anybody have the gloves?
I have the bag in my car.
Okay, there are some, so well, you just bring it to the next one.
Okay.
and we had township cleanup parks last weekend, and we did the same thing. Donut, pizza, water. And we did the beach, the whole beach, and then we went up around the pole barn and cleaned that mess up. We got a lot done. And it was from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock that evening. That was a long day, but we got it done, bunch of good folks too. We had 8 volunteers and then different park officials and some of our employees. We got a lot done up there.
Yeah, we put in a new flag, US flag, looks beautiful, really nice.
Yep, so we got a lot done and we're all caught up and we're ready to go again this year. There's gonna be a lot happening in town this year and we look forward with Parks and Parks working together and getting things done. Thank you all very much. So that's about it for my report. So I adjourn the meeting at 7:30. Thank you very much for all your attention.